Originally released in 2005, Psychonauts was the brainchild of LucasArts alumni Tim Schafer and his studio Double Fine. The game's development was a rollercoaster ride full of publishing conflicts, and ultimately a game that was highly praised, but ended up being a commercial failure. As the years went on, more and more people would discover the game, and demand for a new title grew louder and louder, until finally, crowdfunding came in to make it a reality. This is the story of how one of the biggest flops finally got a sequel. This is Psychonauts 2. The origins of Psychonauts date back as far as 1995. Back when LucasArts was still one of the leaders in point-and-click adventure games, and working on their latest title, Full Throttle. Tim, as its lead designer, would come up with a concept for its main character Ben to go through a peyote-fueled hallucinogenic trip.
That's what's going on in my head. Going like that. Now I'm seeing a kind of ghosty thing.
But it was ultimately rejected by the higher-ups at LucasArts. In fact, the management hated the idea so much that according to Rob Smith's 2008 book Rogue Leaders, The Story of LucasArts, they actually told Tim, "We can't believe we paid you to write this." Fast forward several years, and with failure to bring adventure games into 3D with Grim Fandango in 1998, LucasArts essentially shut down its adventure division and began focusing more on Star Wars titles. Tim himself would leave at the beginning of 2000 with some fellow colleagues to form Double Fine Productions. Their first project would be inspired by that idea from years ago.
I have to warn you, young cadet. You're about to step into a living nightmare.
We would get our first glimpse of Psychonauts in 2003 when it was being promoted as an exclusive for the then new Xbox, with Microsoft even on board as the game's publisher. This was thanks to Xbox architect Ed Fries, who was tasked with bringing exclusive games to the system. Tim has stated that Ed was detrimental to the partnership between the two companies. Unfortunately, Microsoft got cold feet about how long the game was taking to be developed. By the time Ed had left Microsoft in 2004, the game had been in development for 4 years, and was set for release in 2005. The same year, Microsoft planned to release the successor in the Xbox 360. So with their connection now gone, and refusal to change aspects of the game like working on a 360 port, Microsoft decided to pull publishing. With no publisher, Double Fine was at risk of going bankrupt, and over 4 years of work going completely down the drain. Then came help from a surprising source. Will Wright, the creator of SimCity, had a few years ago sold his studio Maxis to Electronic Arts for a whopping $125 million. On a whim, Schafer called his old friend and offered to give him 10% ownership in Double Fine in exchange for enough cash to meet payroll and continue development. Unfortunately, legally, Will was unable to purchase stock in a company following the sale of Maxis, so instead, just lent him the money straight up. Thankfully, money problems wouldn't be an issue for long, as the game would get picked up by Majesco, with additional plans for a PC and PS2 version alongside the original planned Xbox release in April 2005, with the PS2 port coming out 2 months later thanks to Budcat Productions. Now, this isn't going to be a review of Psychonauts. Firstly, we'd be here all day, and secondly, we already did one several years ago. When Psychonauts was finally released, it was almost universally praised, with many people pointing out the writing and level design as a real standout. While the game was far from perfect, it was one of those real uncut diamonds in an industry that had truly become stagnant over the years. So, how many copies did Psychonauts end up selling in 2005? 2.4 million. 1.2 million? 500,000? Try 100,000. Psychonauts would end up being one of the biggest commercial flops in gaming history. After such a poor performance, its publisher Majesco saw its CEO resign and the company move away from big budget publishing. I've looked up discussion back in the day on why Psychonauts failed the way it did, and I really can't find a true answer. Blame could be centered on the lack of advertising for the game. It being released several months before the 360 arrived didn't help on the original Xbox either, and some players bemoaning the open world camp aspect as boring, as well as the intense difficulty of the final boss.
You may have noticed that this really fucking hurts and that you are now in a great amount of pain. Congratulations, you have just received your punishment for not buying Psychonauts. I'd like to know how you think gaming is ever going to adapt as an art form when people go out of their way to make original games, but fuckwits like you never actually buy them because they're too busy inhaling furious amounts of dick.
While the game would be a commercial flop, those that did play it and wound up loving it would start coming out of the woodwork, with the game getting a Steam release the following year. Tim would even lead a campaign to make Psychonauts backwards compatible on the Xbox 360. As years rolled on, more and more people would eventually discover the adventures of Raz and his fellow campers. Over the years, demand for a sequel would gain traction as more and more people played the original. Unfortunately, it was obvious that the price for making a new Psychonauts would be incredibly high, and publishers were skeptical in helping after the first game failed so badly. In 2012, Minecraft creator Notch would publicly offer to foot the bill, but in the end rescinded the offer after finding out a few $1,000,000 meant somewhere around $18 million. Fortunately though, a new way to fund games was about to arrive.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there.
While already existing for a few years, in 2012 the website Kickstarter exploded in popularity as a site designed for anyone to host a project, a concept, even just an idea, and ask for donations from the public to finance it. It was in March that Tim would start the Kickstarter campaign for Double Fine Adventure. Initially only asking for $300,000 to finance the game, in the first 3 days alone would raise over $1.5 million and over $3.3 million by the end of the campaign. The project would eventually turn into Broken Age, and while initially aiming for $300,000, the increase in finances meant an increase in scope, and saw things like hiring Elijah Wood for the main character, and the game being split into 2 parts, with the first half released as early access. The game would be released in 2014 to positive reception, even being released on another Kickstarter project, the Ouya. The Double Fine Adventure Kickstarter opened the floodgates when it came to crowdfunding that we're still experiencing today. A year later, Tim would go back to crowdfunding, just not on the same platform.
General, we've located the base where they're holding the hostages, sir.
Excellent. Mobilize the
In 2015, during the Game Awards, Tim announced they were going back to crowdfunding to finally create Psychonauts 2. Only this time, they would be doing so on a new site called Fig. Founded by Double Fine's former COO Justin Bailey, this time instead of only a few $100,000, Double Fine asked for the same amount they got last time, $3.3 million. Now, some may say that would be too ambitious, but it honestly made sense. Psychonauts 2 was going to cost a lot of money to make. If they could even receive that, then making the game just wouldn't be worth it. The game was also being funded by Double Fine themselves and a mysterious external backer. Thankfully, the campaign was successful, raising over $3.8 million. It wouldn't be long though until we got to experience more Psychonauts though, as just a few days after the campaign was launched, another title was announced that would bridge the first game and its sequel. Rhombus of Ruin was a short title exclusive to VR, which I sadly lack the means of playing at the moment.
I'm honored today to announce that joining Xbox Studios is Double Fine Productions.
In 2019, after almost 20 years of being an independent developer, Double Fine was acquired by Microsoft, the publisher that dropped them all those years ago under their Xbox Game Studio label, making Tim's journey with Psychonauts finally coming full circle.
Dear True Psychic Tales magazine, it's me again, Rasputin Aquato. I know I write a lot and you haven't printed any of my True Psychic submissions so far, but this one's different. This one's true.
Psychonauts 2 is set right after the original and the Rhombus of Ruin, with the game even opening up on a detailed cutscene explaining the story so far. The story details Raz finally arriving at Psychonauts headquarters and facing the turmoil of becoming their newest intern, facing a strict leader in Hollis Forsyth and the hazings of his fellow interns. The gameplay is very similar to the original in regards to platforming, combat, and your range of psychic abilities. While a lot of the abilities like levitating, Psyblast, clairvoyance, and pyro have all made a return, we're also introduced to a new range of abilities. The first one being mental connection that allows Raz to traverse across all kinds of brain patterns. Each world Raz explores is still littered with collectible figments and luggage tags to connect to emotional baggage. This time, Raz will actually help you in locating them. The Psychonauts HQ, better known as the Motherlode, serves as our hub world this time. While not as expansive as Whispering Rock, there is still plenty to discover. Thankfully, all side missions and scavenger hunts are stored in your brand new handbook, where you can even level up your psychic abilities and attach pins for extra effect. The controls are easy enough to handle with psychic abilities assigned to the shoulder buttons. You'll be frequently swapping in and out different abilities given the situation. Combat sees a whole new range of enemies based off different mental issues, including guilt, bad mood, and even enablers, each with their own strategies to defeat them. While the world is a bit more concentrated this time, it doesn't take away from the worlds Raz explores when entering the subconsciousness of those around him. Needless to say, Psychonauts 2 is an absolute trip. Take for example the mission where you need to retrieve a temporary brain to place in the mail clerk's head, only to fight off the physical embodiment of a panic attack, and before you know it, you're on a road trip in the mental manifestation of Woodstock to reunite a band. Or competing in an over-the-top cooking show at the behest of 3 puppet judges, and then riding a bowling ball through a city of germs, which just goes to show what made Psychonauts so special with its writing and atmosphere. We delve deeper into the backstory and origins of the Psychonauts and see a history of love, heartbreak, self-doubt, insecurities, tales about a civil war in a foreign land known as Gulovia, and find out about the ultimate evil of the series, Maliglia. Throughout the story, there are plenty of twists and revelations that even during the end, I wasn't thoroughly convinced we knew everything. Unfortunately for shippers of Lily and Raz, while the two are in a relationship now, there is barely much interaction between the two throughout the game. Oh well. There was also some performance issues, but this could be due to the fact we were playing the game on the original Xbox One from 2013. Still, there were times there was some serious texture popping, slowdowns, lengthy load times, and even the game straight up crashing. Hopefully, issues like that can be addressed later on. Looking at Psychonauts 2 as a game, this is by far one of the best titles I have played all year, and a strong contender for Game of the Year. As for a crowdfunded title, I would honestly put this up as one of the top 5 projects of all time. After the game was financed in early 2016, the studio would deliver major updates every 3 to 4 months. And we mean extensive logs detailing progress on not just the game, but all the goodies as well. Plus, the run of the actual game to backers has been without much drama at all. As for now, it looks like the story of Psychonauts is officially wrapped up. As for the future of Double Fine, things surely are looking up with their acquisition by Microsoft, basically meaning they'll probably never have to crowdfund a title ever again. While it did take over 15 years to finally see a sequel, I'm proud to say that Psychonauts 2 made it worth the wait.